Hi, friend. Niclas here. Welcome to another episode of the Your Audio Solutions podcast, where it's my mission to find the tools and methods from the people that inspire you so you can apply their knowledge to your own life and work. And on the show today, we have the guitarist, bassist, keyboardist Kevin from the band Crownlands, which is a Canadian rock duo. And if you're into kick-ass riffs, progressive rock, and just awesome songs, do check them out. They're really, really awesome, really, really cool band. And actually, they just released some new songs last week, which it is you watching this next week for me recording it. So do check them out. They're really, really cool. And obviously, being a rock duo, Kevin has to play all these instruments all at once, which is pretty badass. Like he has this, I don't know what the word is. I think he mentions it in the interview, but it's like a guitar and a bass. And sometimes he has like a Taurus pedal thing where he plays the bass with his feet. But yeah, it's pretty badass to be able to do that. And it was a real pleasure talking to Kevin, and I hope you will enjoy our conversation as well. And also, before we get into the conversation with Kevin, I'd love to hear your opinion because I'm thinking about changing the name of the podcast. I can't even say my own podcast name, but the Your Audio Solutions podcast. And that name doesn't seem to fit the intention of the show anymore. So I'm thinking about changing the name, and I made some like a Google, whatever it's called, Google Doc thing where you can vote on some names I came up with. And I'd love to hear what you think. So please check that link out and just cast your vote, or leave a comment in the section below. Let me know what you think. Maybe you like the name Your Audio Solutions. Maybe you don't really care what the name is. But yeah, so if you have a minute, please let me know what you think. Use the link below, cast your vote, and hopefully I can change the name to something more fitting soon. And also, before we get into the conversation, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the podcast, whether that's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. The show is growing, and I'm really, really grateful for that because it's all thanks to you guys. And it's growing slowly but steadily. And it's great to see people enjoying the conversations, enjoying the interviews. And I love to make more of them. So your support really, really helps. And it really matters, and we get more cool guests on the bigger the channel gets. So really appreciate your support. But that's it. Let's get into the interview with Kevin from the band Crownlands. So please enjoy.
Classic fucking Skype, man. How are ya?
Yeah, all good.
Uh,
I mean, I think with Skype, it's like everyone usually, or you used to have it, and then they did this. You can just invite people with that link, but still, sometimes a bit complicated.
yeah, totally. How's my connection? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah,
All right,
seems
cool.
totally
If
fine.
anything happens, if I get a Wi-Fi dropout, just let me know, and then I can reset it, and then we can, trace it over. I'm sure this isn't your first rodeo. I'm a big fan of your podcast, man. I
Oh,
really
thanks.
appreciate you thinking of me and inviting me to come on, man. This is really cool.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, man. I mean, I don't know. I don't remember exactly how I found you guys. It must have been just me browsing through cool new bands, something like that.
Cool.
And then I found something really cool straight away. Like when I just read about you guys, um, some older interview. I also don't remember exactly where that was, but you mentioned like you mentioned some of your inspiration. It was like Dwayne Allman, John Butler, Les Claypool, Jack White. And when I read that list, like damn, this guy is just like me,
Oh,
which is yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah. Do you play in a band yourself, Nicholas?
Not now really, but I used to. Now I just make my own music, but
Cool.
used to be in bands like back in Sweden, where I'm from.
Nice.
Uh,
Where are you now?
say it again.
Where are you now?
In UK. Um,
Nice.
used to be in London for 7 years. We just moved to Leeds now.
Wow.
Like the pandemic just accelerated the whole thing, basically.
Yeah,
You
totally.
know, like with so many other
Yeah.
people. But where in Canada are you? You're in Canada,
Uh,
right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm in a town called Oshawa. I'm about like half hour east of Toronto.
All right, man. I love Toronto, man. I've been twice, luckily.
Nice. Yeah. I like Toronto. I like playing in Toronto. I don't like doing anything else in Toronto. I'm not a city person. I like to be out in like the wilderness, and that's why like I live where I live, because 10-minute drive and I'm like literally in the middle of nowhere, and it's exactly, that's where I like to be. Totally. Like, we've got a
Mm.
studio up north, and it's amazing. It's so nice to just go on hikes and be amongst the animals and the trees and be recording a guitar solo and look out and see deer walking across. Like, that's what
Yeah,
I need to feel inspired. But everyone's different, right? Some people like the city, but I feel like with the pandemic, man, like everyone is fleeing Toronto. Everyone's just trying to buy up property like out here, and now property values have skyrocketed. So
right.
as an artist, I'll never own a house, but that's okay. As long as I own a studio, I'm good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Canada is I mean, it's such a beautiful country. Like my fiance's parents, they went to Canada 2 years ago, I guess. Like through I don't know exactly where it was, like with the west coast of Canada. Through where Alaska is, sort of. Maybe British Columbia around there. And it was stunning, man. I mean, Canada is such a treasure, but I don't feel like it's so known, really, like U.S. Right?
Yeah, it's true. It's like Canada's kind of seen as like the uncool cousin of America,
Hmm.
and like it often does get forgotten. And like admittedly, like the music scene and the industry is very, very small in Canada, and so most people who come from Canada have to end up getting signed out of the States. Like, I'm sure like Drake and Bieber and The Weeknd and like some of
Right.
like Canada's biggest musical exports right now are all signed out of like the U.S. labels, whereas like I feel like there's kind of a stigma to signing a domestic deal in Canada, and but we actually did. Our label is Universal Music Canada, and we've had the most amazing experience with them, man. Like, they are
Hmm.
absolutely incredible, and they've all become really good friends. Like, the people that we work with closely there, and
Hmm.
yeah, like we're like proudly Canadian, I guess, even though Canada has its own issues, which we try and talk about in our music. So
Yeah, 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 exactly. And that's also really awesome, to be honest. I mean, Canada, you also have, what is it, Bob Rock? Is he Canadian?
yeah, yeah,
He's a
and
he's a cool one.
yeah. David Bottrell as well.
Hmm.
Really good Canadian producers out there. Shawn Everett is one
Yeah,
of my
yeah.
yeah. Um,
I interviewed him actually a couple of years ago. Uh, he's such a, I mean, his approach to making music is awesome,
yeah,
real awesome.
yeah. He's one of my favorites. I'd love to work with Shawn one day, even if he just like mixes a song or two. That would
Yeah,
be enough for me, I think, just because he's mixed some of my favorite records of all time.
yeah, yeah.
I, like the War on Drugs is one of the most exciting bands in the world right now, and like his work with them on their last record is impeccable. It's so good.
Man, I totally agree, man. Like me and my friend, we love Shawn Everett, and we love the War on Drugs record he did. I mean, it's killer, man. It's
Yeah, yeah, and like I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about now.
yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, I think if he actually mix your new album, whatever, I think it would be awesome, kick ass.
yeah, it would be cool. I feel like Sean's like almost a little too hi-fi, and like he's almost like too clean and perfect the way he mixes for like what we are doing right now. And I feel like we're still kind of like evolving from like this raw live off the floor blues rock thing into this more refined progressive cinematic rock that we're moving into. And I feel like eventually we'll get to a place where we refine our own craft to the point where like it will make sense to work with Sean. And like I'm waiting for that time for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Same, man. As a listener, that would be awesome to hear.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
Love his mix work totally.
But
Um,
so, what is it about that War on Drugs record you love? I mean, in terms of, I mean, because the
it's
songwriting is exceptional too, but I feel
songwriting's
like,
one. It's the same reason why Steely Dan's Asia is
mm,
so perfect. It's like everything is loud and present. Nothing takes over everything else, and it just seems like everything's in its right place on that record. Like the stereo image is perfect. It's warm. it's punchy, but it's not offensive. You know, I feel like we're still coming out of the loudness war, and there's still um, like remnants of that that horrible early 2000s rock mixing technique that like shows up in a lot of modern records, where that's a record where you can put it on and it's, again, everything is present but nothing is painful, and it's just like, I don't know how, if he's like side chained like a mix to the snare, but it's just like when that snare drops on Up All Night, you know, and like the Lin drum comes in, and it's all of a sudden like, holy shit, you know, you spent like a minute in, and you've had this like, you know, a smaller drum machine part, and then like everything like opens up, and it's like, holy shit, like it was good enough before, and then all of a sudden the drums come in, they're just so present in the mix,
Yeah.
and it's hard to explain. Like, I don't know why everything just sounds like warm and fat on that record, but not offensively so. Like, I can't, yeah, I can't get enough of that record. Like, the sonics are perfect.
I totally agree. Are you familiar with
Yeah.
the Mix with the Masters?
No. Let
It's
me,
it's like one of those sites where you can learn mixing, recording, etc. And Shawn Everett has like a video series on there. I haven't seen it
oh,
myself, but it looks very, very interesting. You know, if you have a moment, you should check it
oh,
out.
oh, yeah, I'm looking at that right now. Yeah, I feel like that would be, yeah, he would be a guy I'd want to definitely learn from for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, but our last record that we did with Dave Cobb and Greg Gordon mixed that, and Greg is
Hmm.
such an awesome guy, and we learned so much from that. I feel like when you spend all that money to go and record with these like incredible Grammy Award winning producers, like it's not just to like make that record. It's almost like getting a master class on like their techniques. And I feel like now that we've been cutting demos and tracking a lot of music on our own this year because of, you know, the pandemic, and you can't get in a room with a lot of producers,
Hmm.
I often go back to a lot of what, you know, what Greg was doing on those sessions, and just like editing in such unique ways. Because I'm sure, you know, like most rock bands will just go track to a click and set up your guides, and then like replace your guides with the final bits at the end of the day. Whereas we didn't do that at all. We didn't record anything to a click on our first record, and
Wow.
we just would track everything live off the floor, and then, you know, we'd splice things the way you used to splice stuff with tape, where um, if you know, if the first half of the song is good and the second half was good, it's cool, just like cut it, edit it, and then if like, you know, if that was your fifth take versus your third take, the fifth take we're going to play faster, because I know the way Cody and I work, we get really excited in the studio and we start pushing that beat, and but like that's why those records work so well. Like, what's
Hmm.
uh Honky Tonk Women by Rolling Stones, like Dave mentioned that to us, and it's like you start that song and it never stops getting faster. Like, I think it goes up like 20 or 30 BPM from like the start to the end point of that song. It
Wow.
just like keeps going and going and going. It's hilarious. And
Hmm.
but
But
like that's kind
that's what I love about these older records. I mean, even yeah, well, you guys, because I think more and more people are going back, trying to do what they did in the past a bit,
of
because so much of the stuff these days, like popular music, is so there's no personality in it. And I've said this maybe too many times here, but
I
um,
actually argue the opposite. I think modern pop music has a lot more feeling than modern rock music. I think
oh yeah,
I
which
hate
way?
to die and be like, rock and roll's been Pro Tools to shit. Like, again, like Pro Tools is just like a tool that you can use, right? It's like you know, I'm literally espousing an opinion that like I roll my eyes at sometimes, but I feel like that this we still haven't gotten out of the shadow of like this modern rock sound where, you know, you have like DI'd guitars through a Kemper, and you have sampled drums,
Hmm.
and then you have everything sounds perfect. And even if you are using like properly recorded drums, you're still going to go and like edit those toms and like take out all the bleed. And it's like,
Hmm.
that's the favorite, like my favorite things about those records is the
Hmm.
sound of the room. And I feel like there's like a certain directness and harshness in a lot of modern rock music. And, you know, if you go and listen to like bedroom pop, again, like Billie Eilish, there
Right,
is like a
right, right.
sonic quality to it that is warm and inviting, where I still, at least in Canada, when I listen to a lot of like active rock and alt rock, there's a certain sterility to the sound, and it's kind of it comes across as flat because again we're still caught in the make everything loud, make everything exciting, and like then you have this really like harsh kind of like brick wall limited sound to like this to a lot of modern rock music.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I get it though, because like when you're competing for getting an ad on the airwaves for this new song, like it has to be loud or it has to be punchier. And
Mm-hmm.
I actually would argue that a lot of modern pop music is moving away from that. Like that new Weekend record is
Right.
actually really dynamic, and there's a lot of space there. And I think that we're finally seeing that actually happen in the rock world now, where like people are embracing a lot more dynamics, and people are hopefully we get into the quietness war and we just get into like these really beautiful dynamic records.
Exactly.
um I think one of the bands that really excites me right now is Elder, and they were originally from the
Mm.
east coast of the
Check out those
States, but
bands.
now I think they're all based in Germany. um and the last couple records they've made were um fairly simple affairs in terms of production, right? You can definitely hear that they track this like fairly live. And as far as like modern rock production goes, I love it. It's dark and it's sludgy in all the right
Right.
ways. It doesn't feel overly compressed, and yeah, it's really exciting. There's another band from the UK called Green Lung, and like
Right.
they're doing really really cool stuff. It's kind of like um, it's like Dio Sabbath meets Ozzy Sabbath, and it's so funny. Like whenever you start talking about metal bands, it's like you're either Team Dio or Team Ozzy. Whereas these guys seem to pull from like the greatest bits of both those eras, and they
Nice.
do like, really great Brian May guitar harmonies and whatnot. And
Wow.
I'm really excited for their new record as well.
That's
And it's
cool,
just
man.
nice to like throw on these modern rock records that are clearly like made with love, with like the idea of like carrying the torch of like their favorite artists rather than um, the PRS into a Mesa triple wreck, Nickelback 3 Days Grace type vibe, which again like nothing wrong with that. It's just not, like it doesn't touch my soul the way that I throw on the War on Drugs and I hear Adam Granducio's like fingers on the strings of his jazz
Mm-hmm.
master, and it's just like I think some of the best guitar tones of all time are on Lost in the Dream and Deeper Understanding. Man, I just
Mm-hmm.
the it's perfect. It's just it's so in your face. It's like Neil Young meets David Gilmour, and
Yeah, 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 exactly.
the record I couldn't get enough of last year was Live Drugs. And obviously in a year that we've all been starved from live music, and War on Drugs drops a beautiful live double album. And it's just some of the
Did,
Leslie tones on
yeah.
that are just perfect, just like shimmering. And
But did you
I
find the
just
album, like, because I listened to the album too, the Live Drugs, did you find they play the songs way slower than the original? Or was that just me? Because I asked my friend that too, the one I mentioned before, because he sent it to me. I was like, oh, awesome. But then I listened to it, I was like, what the hell? It felt, oh, the whole thing felt so slow to me. But I don't know if I'm wrong there.
I think yeah, like I've been obsessed with that band. I've watched like all of
Hmm.
their like live bootleg videos on YouTube and whatnot. Like I'm really really into that band, and I do agree, like they do seem to like really pull things back. And I think Charlie Hall is again one of the best drummers going right now. He just sits in the pocket and like grooves on like a 4 bar beat for like 8 minutes in that band, and it's like
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
rock steady. Again, like we talk about certain bands that start speeding up when they get excited. Like I don't hear that in the War on Drugs. It's just like man is like a human metronome, kind of like Phil Selway from Radiohead. He's
Hmm.
another just amazing pocket drummer.
Hmm.
And yeah, like, I do
I mean,
agree though.
that's the
Like,
same as AC/DC a bit, because sometimes I go back to listen to AC/DC because
yeah,
they have some kick ass songs,
they
and
do.
the drummer just sits and swings.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
terrific feeling.
Absolutely. It's funny because like we talk about drummers that like just like pocket drummers that sit in the groove, and like Cody, my drummer, is like absolutely the opposite. Cody loves, it's like every fill that like we can get, we put in there, because we come
Mm.
from like the Yes, Genesis, Rush school of thought, where like we want to do as much as we can, which is the two of us. And so we've tried to like you know, every little lick and every little drum fill that we can get away with, we put in there for sure.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
But something I'd love to ask you, because obviously being in a band like yours, I guess, I mean, it's hard to stay away from being compared to all the bands like Led Zeppelin, let's say. And
Yeah,
I don't think you guys sound at all like Led Zeppelin, but I can still hear there's influence from Led Zeppelin. And I feel like such a fine line from being, oh, this is a Zeppelin ripoff to being, oh, this is inspired by Led Zeppelin, but they have their own sound. Because you guys have totally different riffs and totally different quirkiness to your riffs and sound.
yeah.
But I think my question is, is that something you think about, like trying
It
to
is.
stay
Yeah.
away from that, but still,
I
having
think
that in there?
I think once you notice that something sounds similar in your music, the key is to embrace it fully and don't shy away from it. Because I find uh the more you push yourself away from like what feels natural to you, like the
Mm,
more you're gonna be bummed about having to play that song for the rest of your life. And
mm,
so I think that like when we notice stuff like that in our music, we just turn, it's like, cool, great, like let's just go with it. Because I think that every artist steals, and the idea is to like steal from like a wide um source of inspiration. And yeah, absolutely, we love Zeppelin, and we listen to a lot of like you know Sabbath and Zeppelin, especially on
mm,
that first record. And like the first record that we did with Dave Cobb, our self-titled, is like we consciously leaned into those Zeppelin influences, and like that like first wave of I guess that'd be the second wave of the British invasion with Zeppelin and the Yardbirds and whatnot. But that more bluesy side, and we specifically went down national work with Dave Cobb because he had done all the Rival Sons records, like another
mm,
very Zeppelin-esque band. And not just like musically, but sonically, right? Like Dave had studied like what made those great Bonham drum sounds, and like we actually track everything to a 24 track 2-inch tape machine. And we very speeded the drums down on a bunch of those songs the way that they did on those big Bonham sounds that we love. On uh, um, No Quarter
right.
and When the Levee Breaks. Both like those drums sound huge, right? The ride sounds like it's 30 inches big, and it's because they slowed the tape down, and all of a sudden the drums sound huge. And
Mm,
so we definitely wanted to go along with that, and trying to get some of those like really big reverby like Phil Collins type drums. And yeah, I think it's like important to um see those bands and those influences as signposts for your own music. And I think
mm,
it's so easy to get caught up in like, oh, it sounds moderately like X or Y band, let's abandon it. It's like there's nothing wrong with wearing your influences on your sleeve, especially right now where it's hard to come up with anything new and truly original. And we see that in like all forms of art. I think Stranger Things, when that came out, with all John Carpenter and Steven Spielberg and Stephen King influences, like right
mm,
there. Yet it was still new and fresh and exciting. And I think that's there's nothing wrong with nostalgia, especially right now in a time where people like, if you look at streaming numbers,
mm,
most people are diving back into like their comfort artists. No one's really discovering a
right.
lot of new music right now because we don't want to be uncomfortable and disturbed right now. We want like that warm blanket around us. And like
Yeah.
if you find a new band that gives you that warm blanket feeling and gives you something new and exciting, I think that's what people are looking for. At least that's
Mm,
what I'm looking for. I think like when I'm diving into new music. And as again, to name check War on Drugs, it feels like if Bob Dylan was jamming with Pink Floyd, and it's like, yes, these are two of
mm,
my favorite bands. And so like,
yeah.
what we're doing with Crownlands, it's obviously we're trying to pull a lot more from Rush than we are from Zepp.
Mm,
um but again, like that first record that we did, it's not lost on us that we actually owe a lot of our success to Greta Van Fleet. When they blew
right.
up a few years ago, um, I think that led to a lot of people looking for another band, right? And so I think that's why we got a lot of our team, and that's why we were able to get on, like, all of a sudden, like as they blew up, we found ourselves blowing up. We were on the road with Jack White, we were on the road with Primus, we were on the road with Coheed and Cambria, and again, like these are a lot more like progressive artists, and like so we were trying to push ourselves into a more proggy direction rather
Mm,
than like a radio friendly blues rock thing that they're doing. Um, but I think they get like too much flack for being so Zeppelin-esque because it's like, well, who
oh,
else is doing?
Greta Van Fleet, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I really do believe that music is a relay race, and you know, as an artist, you can only carry the torch so far, and then someone else picks it up and runs with it. And um, I think that's like our duty right now is to like, kind of like reflect and reinterpret all of our favorite music that we grew up loving, and introduce that to a new generation of people, and like the platform that we have now, it's like, kids listen to our music, and if that means like we can introduce them to, Genesis, Yes, and Rush, and Zeb, cool,
Mm.
absolutely. Like I want to use that platform to hopefully inspire like the next generation of musicians. Like the way, when I was 14 years old and I heard Xanadu by Rush for the first time, it changed everything for me, man,
Mhm.
everything.
I listened to that
And
track the first time the other week, actually.
oh, cool. What did you think? What did you think?
I mean, because there's Rush songs I really love, but
Yeah,
it's never a band I think I need to just delve into them because I never really have, you know. So I just know some of this, like the what's it called, Why White said, like those, like that one and some other one, but I need to delve deeper into them.
yeah,
But I dig that one, the Xanadu song, you know.
yeah. That's a special song, and I feel like um, the way that they use program music is not unlike, if you listen to Beethoven's Pastoral Symphony, I think that's Symphony Number 6,
Hmm.
uh, and where there's a section in that song where it's like, it depicts like a violent C in that symphony, and then like Beethoven's got like the violins going up trying to make like seagull noises, and like that must have been like revolutionary, back then. People must have been losing their minds,
Yeah, yeah.
and you hear that in the intro with Xanadu, where like Alex is doing all of these like volume swells with the guitar, and it's interesting where you see like a rock band kind of like carrying it on like a 200-year tradition of like these classical and romantic composers, and I don't mean that lightly. Like I really do think like those symphonic rock guys, especially Rush, like the way that they were able to combine, influences where you can hear like nods to guys like Beethoven, and you're hearing the heaviness of Sabbath, and you're hearing that intricacy of Yes, and it's like, that's the stuff that like, blew my mind and changed my life path. And I just
Mm.
really, really want to make music like that influences some kid to like pick up an instrument and like try
Mm.
and like do the same thing, because it is so beautiful. It's absolutely mad to like drop everything in your life and like chase music, but um generation after generation of people keep doing it, and obviously you don't have the same class mobility that you did in like the baby boomer dream generation of, like the Brits and the Americans that, came from nothing
Mm.
after the Second World War and were able to, you know, buy $1 million houses and whatnot. I don't think that the class mobility exists for artists as much these
No, no,
days.
definitely not.
And yeah, and but we still do it. And I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
so, that I think that's special, where the drive to create and to the drive to inspire, it
Mm.
transcends
Yeah, I mean, it's never been about money, really. If you think about, I mean, for you guys, I'm sure as well. It's like you started because you got inspired and someone like listened to Rush. It wasn't like, oh, they made this amount of money, that's what I want to do. It's because they made you feel that way with that Xanadu song, as an example.
yeah. Yeah, and I think like people can feel that in music,
Mm.
where if you truly, I think it's like the intention behind the note, like Miles
Mm.
Davis
Mm.
said, right? It's anyone can play a note. It's the attitude of the motherfucker that's playing it, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
quote. I was like, and it's true, where it's like if you play a certain note with intention, and like that will translate, like the way you play one note will translate to the way you play everything else on your instrument, and people feel that, and I think that's why music is so important, where like everywhere you travel in the world, like you don't have to speak the same language, but you can jam with anyone,
Exactly.
and I think that's what's so beautiful about it, and that's why I've dedicated my life to it, man. It
Yeah.
feels like not a day goes by that I don't play guitar, and like this year, has actually been really good for me for my music creation. Like as much as a bummer as it's been to like be off the road,
Hmm.
like I've just, I just pick up my guitar and like I've reconnected with the joy of music. And I think
Nice.
I hope it's been like that for a lot of people,
Hmm.
where instead of having to sit down and like hone a half hour of music, you get on stage, you get off stage, and then you drive for 20 hours, and you get on stage, and it's it can become like it feels like tunnel vision, right? Like
Hmm.
you lose focus of everything else in your life. Whereas this year, it's just been nice to sit down and play and write for the sake of writing again,
Hmm.
instead of just trying to get to like an end goal.
Hmm.
And yeah, hopefully it's
Definitely.
that for a lot of people. But I know it's been really, really productive for me.
Yeah, I mean, I must say my experience is similar. I mean, because I work as a, a sound engineer, like working with bands and doing live shows. Um, and also when all my work disappeared, I had to rethink like, oh, what's actually making me fulfilled? Like what's really important. And that also, like yourself, it made me really appreciate making music for that reason. Like what's actually important is not really, oh, how many gigs do you have this month, or how much money did you make this year, whatever. It's actually going back to what's actually making you fulfilled, which was really, really nice.
Yeah, totally. And I think a lot of people have struggled with that question this year. It's like, what makes you fulfilled?
Yeah.
Like I think that's the only thing that matters. Like as long as you have shelter, and as long as you have food,
Hmm.
um, like once you can like start like trying to like actualize yourself, right? And then like
Hmm.
everything that like I've built my entire life around was taken away this year, and
Hmm.
it was really hard to reconcile that for a long time. And I think it was
Yeah.
like that for everyone in our line of work, and it still is that way, right? I mean, it's easier for someone like myself because like my job is still just to create,
Hmm.
whereas a lot of a lot of our friends that are like stage techs in front of house techs and like lighting directors and whatnot, like they don't have that outlet as much, and it's really hard to be able to go and like program like their shows, right? And
Yeah.
even
Yeah. Yeah.
with COVID lockdowns in Canada, it still is very difficult to even organize for live stream events.
Right.
And I think that's like again like a responsible thing.
Hmm.
As much as a bummer as it is, I think like the safety and like the
Yeah. Yeah.
health of
Yeah.
everyone like it takes has to take precedence.
Hmm.
But I feel for them. I feel like that industry. It's gonna take a long time to come back to wherever it was, but um, I think um,
We will get
we'll
there, hopefully.
yeah, we'll get there,
Yeah.
man. We'll
Yeah,
get
that's the goal.
there.
But Kevin, I love to delve into, because I know you play the guitar and the bass, with that massive guitar. I don't know what that's called really, or you use your
Double,
feet.
yeah, and
Huh?
then I've got my Taurus pedals as
Yeah,
well that
yeah,
I
yeah.
like the bass stuff with if I'm like playing guitar.
Hmm.
And yeah, again, like I got that from a lot of those great bands from the '70s and '80s, like the Police used Taurus pedals a bunch, and
Right.
Rush again, and Genesis. And
Mm.
it's just like one of those like textures and timbres that always captured my imagination as a kid, like these like huge this huge low end that came out of those records like really caught my attention. And like bass was my first love, and so it's kind of funny where like I'm stuck mostly playing guitar in this band now. But yeah, like I've figured out a way to get like really good at arranging my parts
Hmm.
in the studio that I can like recreate it live, because I think a really important tenet of rock and roll is the live aspect, and like that's where a band truly becomes a living, breathing thing. And I
Mm.
still think that that's where rock music lives, is on the stage, and like to be shared with a room of people. And a really important part of what rock is to me is to be live, and to
Mm.
be like I don't want to hear any backing tracks. I don't want to hear any if I hear it, I want to be able to look on stage and see the people making that sound.
Yeah.
And that really mattered to me. So like with Crownlands, as a duo, like we obviously have a lot to juggle, and like
Hmm.
I'm stuck sometimes like I'll be like playing guitar with my left hand, playing keyboard parts with my right hand, and then playing the bass part with my feet on my
Yeah.
pedals. And I
How do you
love that.
separate that? How do you separate that in your head? Like, and also,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, it's not too different from like if you're like playing an independent part on a keyboard with with your two hands.
Mm.
And I find I don't know, it's just practice, really. I know
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
pop out answer, Nicholas, but it really is. It's just um, it's funny. Like I was never great at one instrument, so I figured my niche as an artist should be being good at multiple instruments at the same time.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like
perfect.
some of my favorite artists, like Mike Rutherford, was
Mm.
like a great multitasker, and I think like that's what really inspired me um, as a musician. And again, like when I started diving in and accepting my role as a guitar player, yeah, I started really, really diving into the Allman Brothers, and like the
Mm.
way that Dwayne Allman could like create these super complex and beautiful vocal lines with his guitar, like really, really opened up a whole world to me. And John Butler, this amazing Australian
Mm.
guitar player. And so it was basically those guys opened up my mind to open and alternate modal tunings.
Right.
And that opened up a lot of things where then I could create like fairly complex chord voicings with one finger. And that allowed me to be able to do like a lot of tapping lines with my left hand on a guitar, which basically freed up my right hand to go and like start doing like counterpoint melody lines on a keyboard part, and then I could like reinforce the fundamental or do another counterpoint line with my feet. And like my bass pedals only have one octave, so I have to
Mm.
get really clever with the way I arrange an ascending or descending bass line with like any given chord progression.
Mm.
And it's like those limitations though have like given me my voice and my sound. And after so many years of playing parts like that, allows me to yeah, like fall into like a certain pattern. And I think a really important part of like writing music is when something starts to sound familiar and sound like you, like don't run away from it, because
Mm.
once you start analyzing your favorite guitar players, your favorite arrangers, you start noticing like three or four tricks that they do for like their entire career, and you're like, oh, here we go again. And I think it's important as an artist is to not shy away from those similarities you start finding in your own music, and like to embrace it. And just like you said earlier, like if you notice that people compare you to Zeppelin, be like, sure, thanks, that's great, what a great band to be compared to, and move on with your life.
Yeah, yeah.
And like don't fight what comes naturally to you.
Mm.
Obviously don't get lazy, don't get complacent, but it's just so easy to get wrapped up in your head. And like I overthink all the time, man, when I'm writing and composing. It's like if you start finding that like you love writing in D Dorian, great. If you like start finding you rely on like a Mixolydian mode where like everything has that flat seven in it, you're like, I can't get away from this because it sounds so good. Great, embrace it and just move on.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, yeah,
like
a
that.
great example of that is like look at Metallica. All their songs are in E, essentially.
Oh, but it works.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And yeah, like it's just yeah, again, like don't be afraid of the patterns you start
Mm.
um that start emerging in your writing, because
Mm.
like that's good. That's your sonic footprint.
Yeah.
That's same thing. When you go, when you start cooking dinner and you're not sure what to make, and for me, like I love making dal tadka. Like I'm a big curry man, and so like if I don't know what to do, I start doing that, and it's great, cool. Just like you
Yeah.
find your thing and you just start refining it, right?
Mm. No, I love that, man. That's really important to, yeah, first of all, be able to embrace that and be open to it. And do you have you always been able to do that, or something that just came with maturity, so to speak?
Um, oh, as far as like multitasking and whatnot,
Oh
or
no, no,
like
just accepting whatever sound comes out is the sound that comes out.
that's something I'm continuously working on for sure. Yeah.
Right.
But again, I think it's like you should also never stop pushing yourself. Like, I've been playing guitar for about 10 years now, but I'm still taking lessons, like over Skype and over Zoom
Mm.
right now from like players that I really admire.
Cool.
Because you never stop. That's a great thing about music, and you'll never stop improving. It'll never be something you'll truly master. It's like um,
So what's really piquing your interest now with the guitar then that you want to learn?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand like certain phrases in voice leading, like with chord changes, like trying to get out of my own head of like when I'm composing a solo, for instance, trying to think in a less pattern based way and thinking more melodically and thinking like reharmonizing my own lines in like the way that like Gilmore or Brian May would do. And it's like if I'm gonna start thinking about that, and like I think, well, what happens if if I stack like a fifth on top versus a third, and then like I think about like the way I invert my own chords with like my playing, because let's say Cody's singing like a fifth over the root, and like my highest note is a third, and like I think about the relationship between like the voice leading between Cody's voice and my guitar,
Right.
and just trying to really get into that rather than just bashing out some power chords and having at her. Like I'm really trying to think about like my two top lines and like how I can think contrapuntally within like the context of rock music. And
Mm, that's
it's
super
again,
fascinating.
like it's good to like analyze and think about that, but again, when you sit down and jam, you forget it. So it's like I really think it's so important to learn all the rules and then break them.
Hmm.
It's instead of just doing things like haphazardly for your whole life, and you're like, why am I doing this? I don't know. It's really important to be able to analyze your own work, and then so then when you catch those things, like again, as I said, like a lot of the time, like I'll do this modal mixture thing. Well, I'll do like my root chord, and then like I'll hit like the flat seven. I'll go up to like the a borrowed chord of like the a minor third, but I'll do it as major, and it's like that's such a classic thing. Like you hear that in like pretty much every Crownland song,
Mm.
and there's something about like this like modal mixture about rock and roll that I love, and yeah, like once you start noticing those patterns, then you can just be like, great. It's the same thing with therapy, like where if you
Mm.
start noticing like you get caught up in circular thoughts, like remember you are not your thoughts, you are the awareness behind your thoughts that like
Mm.
observes it. And
Mm.
it's like, okay, cool, I'm here again. And it's important to do that with your own music too, and like to like recognize and honor where you are, and if you're doing stuff that you love, to really know why you love that, and then like
Mm.
move on, and like same thing if you hear like a song with a certain like a chord voicing that like really captures your heart, like why not dive in and figure out why it moves you that certain
Mm.
way.
That's
But
something I recently got into, like chords, like trying to understand just more about chords, like, and going back to like, uh, I think it was just any song, like, but it was, I know it was specifically Beatles songs. I just went back and it's like, oh, why does this, let's say there's a chorus that feels, from the verse going to the chorus, feels uplifting. It's like, why does that feel uplifting? And then looking at the chorus, and I just recently got into that, and yeah, I love it, man.
yeah, like
Yeah.
Beatles were geniuses. I love the Beatles. I can't get enough of that band. And yeah, it's like their chord progressions were so unique for the
Mm.
time. Like ridiculously complex at times. Like
Yeah.
really really big. I love that band. I love again, like as a slide player, George Harrison had some
Yeah.
some of the most beautiful simple lines that anyone else would have like tried to push it into a billion other directions. And George just again, he served the song. He was a musician's musician for sure.
Definitely. Do you like his solo album, All Things Must Pass?
Oh yeah, dude, I I,
Yeah.
I love that album. And it's just how many people come out with like a debut triple album, and it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think he had the best of all the Beatles with like their solo careers. I think George had the best album for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's terrific, terrific album. But something that's also like fascinating with the Beatles is that they were so young when they made all this music. Like, what the hell? Like, how were they only like, I don't know, 20, 25, making all this complex, beautiful, simple as well music that still transcends generations?
Yeah, it's
I don't get it.
that it's hard to put your finger on like how like they really truly hit just such magic.
Yeah.
And like yeah, like with each passing year it felt like a decade. I think again, I think a lot of that has to do with with like how they were able to take advantage of the class mobility that they had, where all of a sudden they had access to whatever they wanted or needed in such a short period of time, and like the unbridled success of that band like afforded them to like fearlessly experiment and like
Mm.
push on. And it was the same thing with like Bob Dylan, where like these guys were putting out like 2 records a year,
Mm-hmm.
and like just like how like the unfettered growth that they showed in that beautiful decade.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's hard to explain. I'm trying to think of like any other industry where things just like leapt so quickly. I'd say like Dylan and the Beatles, and like the way that they just kept egging each other on in the mid late '60s would be kind of like how George Lucas and Steven Spielberg pushed
Mm-hmm.
each other in the late '70s with blockbusters. Like
Yeah,
where
yeah.
Jaws comes out in '75 and then Star Wars comes out in '77, and it's like the leaps and bounds that like mainstream cinema made with those movies, and like how like the entire industry changed is probably, I think it's similar to the way the music industry was upended by Rubber Soul and Highway 61. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like those are, it's like similar, like um, leaps and bounds in two different industries, and it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I feel like like again, like that competitive, like but friendly edge that all of those bands had of just like, you know, um, without bands like the Beach Boys like pushing boundaries in the studio, and then Paul getting his hands on Pet Sounds and
Yeah, yeah.
pushing go and make Sergeant Pepper. So
But
I
how
don't
do you
know.
think? Maybe you guys are thinking about this already, but how can we keep pushing like that? How can we try to keep, yeah, just pushing the music making thing forward like those guys?
Hmm.
Do you have any ideas on that?
I don't know. Like again, like I feel like we're approaching the post genre world right now, where we aren't limited by like the definitions of hip hop or pop or rock or jazz or fusion. I feel like everything is starting to become like this beautiful melting pot, and I'm really excited for that. Where back in the day, I feel like it was so um um like galvanized between like genres growing up. It's like you were a metal kid or you were a rock kid or you were a pop kid. Whereas now all the metalheads I know like love Beyonce, and like they aren't
Mm.
afraid to dive into the new Taylor Swift record, because good music is good music and it
Yeah.
transcends genre. And I think like once we like recognize that like that's actually like freeing, I think we're going to see a lot of really interesting music that's like pushing boundaries and whatnot. I don't think like as a band like Crownlands, like I don't think like we're necessarily trying to be on that cutting edge. I think we're just trying to honor the music that we love,
Mm.
and just like do cool shit.
Mm-hmm. But that's also in a way pushing it forward. You know, that genre itself.
The most important thing to push art forward is to forget about the commercial appeal. And
Mm.
like we've kind of done that with our new songs. Like um, we've got these 2 songs that we worked on with Nick Resculinets that are coming out in a couple of days. So when
Oh,
this comes
cool.
out, they probably will have already been out, which will be very exciting.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think it's the best thing we've ever done. And like one of the songs is like 8 minutes long, and we shot this amazing like sci-fi kind of
Awesome.
Star Wars, Dune, Blade Runner esque music video, and I'm so happy with it. I'm so proud of it, and I think it's like the first step of like the next wave of what we're doing as a band, and like we're trying to push into like this fantastical sci-fi world where we're trying to like write this concept record right now, and that's kind of the way we're pushing ourselves. And I think like the key to like pushing music forward is to push yourself to do what you want. Like don't be afraid to go and write down like your own vision of like where you want to be, and like just go and do it. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you want to go make a concept record, go make it. If you want
Mm.
to combine like really different genres, go for it. It's like I
Mm.
find it funny that everyone you talk to that doesn't really listen to music, they'll say the same thing, like I like everything except for country and hip hop. And then but then you have country hip hop like Lil Nas X, when he blew up with Old Town Road, that was the biggest song in the world for like what, a whole year. And it's like the two genres that no one listens to. Interesting,
Yeah,
and like same,
yeah.
you know,
Mm.
no one eats at McDonald's, but everyone, is the most successful restaurant. No one listens to Nickelback, but they've sold millions and millions of records. So
But
it's like,
I gotta say about Nickelback, like the record, what was it called? Silver Side Up.
yeah,
That's a terrific record, man. There's some kick-ass riffs.
yeah, oh
I love that record.
yeah. Like again, like good music's good music. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
fuck the stigma of listening to like different kinds of music, and I think like that's like where whether we like it or not, the way like streaming has changed our listening patterns.
Hmm.
And I think that I think we're in like again like a post genre world. I think we're in a post album world. I don't think the way that most people consume music is it's built around records. Like I've got my record collection, I've got my turntable, and like that's the way I prefer to listen to music. But
Hmm.
I'm an outlier. I'm a freak. Like I'm not. I don't represent the people that I'm necessarily trying to market my own music to. And then I do have to recognize that the advent of TikTok has changed the way a lot of people create and consume music. Where like these 30-second videos seems to be like the way most people are consuming music right now, and like
Is it?
that's where
Wow.
people are like it. Basically, if you don't have a viral song on TikTok right now, it's going to be very, very hard to get a major label record deal. Again,
Wow.
we're very lucky that like we decided to do it old school. Like we got a lot of our notoriety just by like getting in the band, touring, and playing all over our country, and building a reputation good enough that we got signed with an amazing agent, Ralph James, who incidentally he helped build Nickelback and Billy Talent and whatnot, like these bigger Canadian artists. And then that was how we got our manager Ollie, who then got us a record deal with Universal Music Canada. And like again, it always built off of like good faith and like building good relationships with people and just being really fucking good live, which is like not something that you can really build a career off right now. Like we kind
Hmm.
of I admit that like our success is um like not indicative of how most people have like achieved like getting this far. Most people get big by having a viral hit, getting on the right Spotify playlist, getting millions of streams, and then going on tour. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying like it's a new model, and like I'm kind of a Luddite, and I just wanted to do it like the old school way. And
Hmm.
like we worked our asses off for like 4 years before we got anywhere. And again, we're still not really, we're not very successful. Like we've had like a few like top 20 hits in our country. We've done
Hmm.
some international touring, um, but we're in no way like like a success story yet. Hopefully we will be. Hopefully we can do this interview again, and I'll have tons of gold chains and have a beautiful house. But
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, but
yeah,
that's so
man.
fascinating because I had no, I mean, I know TikTok, obviously, I know the importance of it, but I think I'm just also a bit like you there, where it's not really appealing to me. It's not really my, in my world, that whole world, basically. So I had no idea that it's so important for
Yeah.
artists, really. But I
It's
guess it is.
it's like it happened to me this year where like I finally realized that I'm out of touch with youth culture. It's like that scene in The Simpsons when Grandpa Simpson's like, I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was, and now what I'm with isn't it. And
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is weird and scary to me. And it's true, like it finally happened this year where I'm like, I don't get this. I don't want to get this. I'm not doing it. And then all of a sudden, everyone on our team's like, you should probably come around to it because whether we like it or not, Facebook is dead, Instagram is dead, and like, how do you on a budget like promote your art? How do you promote yourself as an artist? And like, I think like the biggest change that's happened is now the music is not the main commodity, like the
Mm,
artist is the commodity and the music is just a byproduct of it. And so what we're seeing now is artists like Poppy, who's up for a Grammy for Metal Album of the Year, where she started out as a YouTube personality making these really strange um surreal videos, like kind of like almost like Clockwork Orange type stuff, like very uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden, after building up her career for over years of like racking up millions of views just doing these weird surreal videos, she dived into music. And I feel like we're seeing a rise in like multidisciplinary artists. And again, like Billie Eilish, right, where her success is owed just as much to her image and her entrepreneurship as it is to her music, right? It's she is an influencer, a mogul, uh like a personality, right? And that's kind of like what we're seeing right now is like the rise of people investing in an artist, not necessarily for their music, but for what they represent and like how they connect with other people. And like,
Right.
what's that new song by Olivia Rodrigo? Is that like Driver's License, where like it's like the
Right.
story, like this thing blew up, and it's like all because of TikTok. And
But how do you
people,
guys try to navigate that world? And like you're saying,
I
Facebook is there
I
and all that.
I don't I it's so boring to me. Like I did not get into music to get my picture. I did not get into music to worry about how many streams I'm getting. I didn't get into music to make sure I have the right hashtags on my TikTok post and like I'm posting at the right time of day. Like I got into music to play music. And like unfortunately my attitude towards that will be to my detriment. Because I'm not interested in it. Again, I'm an outlier. I'm a unicorn because I am an angry rock musician who has a really incredible team behind me, and they're pushing me to do that. If I didn't have a team pushing me to do it, I'd be,
Right.
I wouldn't have the platform. So therefore, like the fact that I do have like a bit of a platform, I do want to use that to like responsibly and ethically promote my music and like what we talk about. Because like Crownlands, um, like like we're fairly political. Like we talk about Indigenous rights and we talk about gay rights and trans rights, and that's something that's very, very important to us. And so you want to use our music to talk about that. And the fact is that we have all of a sudden a whole generation of kids that are actually very socially conscious, right? Like I feel like if you've talked to like a young person lately, they are on the cutting edge, or on the cusp of a lot of this, and so you have to listen to what the kids are talking about, because like that, they really are talking stuff right now. And so fact is that people are using TikTok to spread a lot of that and to enlighten people. So it's like we do kind of have to embrace that, because that's where like the next wave of revolutionaries are. And like we want to be there. We want to be on like the right side of history. We want to do good and use our music to spread positive messages and hopefully enact change in our country and the world. And so we have to embrace TikTok, which sounds so counterintuitive, but like there it is. Like that's what the young people are using. And we're still learning, man. Like I think it's like we have like what, like 10,000 followers on like Instagram, but yeah, I think we have like 70 followers on TikTok. So it's like that shows how out of touch we are, and like we're a fairly young band, and there's going to be like this whole generation of like these micro 30-second clips of songs that change people's lives the way that these 20-minute rock epics changed our lives, so um it's still a very new world and it's very exciting. So it's like the same thing with NFTs and cryptocurrency. It's like now is the time to get into that. Like um if there's something that's is on the cutting edge, don't be afraid to dive in. I say that as someone who is afraid to dive in, but if someone's listening to this right now and you're trying to like carve out a career for yourself, like yeah, like embrace what the kids are doing, because unfortunately, like, that is the future. And like,
Yeah.
I don't want
Yeah.
to
Well
make their
put.
things, but we will probably eventually have to adopt that at one point.
Exactly. But it's interesting you said Facebook and Instagram is dead, because I think so much attention for, I mean, friends I have that are in bands, all of their effort goes into Facebook and Instagram and stuff. But do you know why that is not uh, a good way? Is it because the kids are on
Well,
TikTok or?
yeah, I mean, like, think of
Right.
what happened, 10 years ago when like every band built their career off MySpace, and then all
Yeah,
of a sudden
yeah.
disappeared and Facebook showed up. And like I got into Facebook like at the right time for the band. Like we built a lot of the band out of touring through just like booking shows on Facebook, promoting them, like liking other bands' Facebook pages and networking that way. And it was really, really effective for me like 5 years ago. Whereas things have changed so much, like not just in the last 5 years, but in the last 6 months, the way that we've consumed and networked music is completely changed because of COVID and because of the way that, if your band isn't on social media, it doesn't exist right now. If you're not on social media, you don't exist. And it's this really weird place right now. And hopefully when like live music picks up again, like we won't have to focus on it. And like, again, I kind of banked on just becoming successful through touring. And we had like all of this international touring lined up this year. It was just like, just get good, play live, blow people's minds. Then that's the way to do it. Whereas now it's like, well, you have to look at the camera a certain way and have the right lighting in the video to make sure that it gets the right traction on TikTok. And it's like, okay, but it is, yeah, as I'm taking the piss out of it, that is truly how artists are building their careers right now. And that is how artists are getting signed to labels right now. And that's how you're able to build a team, because like you can't do everything on your own. And I feel like that's like the biggest issue that independent artists have, is like a distrust of the industry. And like, you have like, you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. And if you don't trust the people that you work with, and like what's the point? What's the good in it? And I think it's really important to surround yourself with people that you trust and respect. And and the people that I surround myself with that I trust and respect are telling me to get on TikTok. So I mean,
exactly. Just have to do it.
yes.
But how, if you don't mind me asking, how was, because obviously when you started out, you were a local band before you got all these tours with Jack White, Primus, for example.
Yeah.
How did you get that, let's say, foot in the door? That's not the right expression for this, maybe, but how did you get the next step as a band to get like a booking agent or working with like Ollie and people like that?
I'd say that like literally, so what happened was we went in and like self-financed recording 2 EPs with our guy Justin Melly, who's actually like been our longtime engineer, and he's toured with us, and he's been our front of house guy, he's been our tour manager, he's like been our boy. And as like, when you're on the road, like tensions can like raise and whatnot, and it's like so important to like maintain that relationship for sure. And so we went on the road, we toured hard, we played in front of 5 people everywhere we went, and it sucked, and we ate shit for like 2 or 3 years before we got any traction whatsoever. And that was just like, that's just the way it is. Like you can't, unless you're someone like Billie Eilish or Lorde, who, you just make a really good song, it hits the right people at the right time at the right place, and then you go from doing no shows to all of a sudden playing stadiums. That's like, again, like that's like a 1 in a million shot. So like, if you want to make it, you have to like, just go in and play the clubs and sleep on people's floors and eat gas station, fucking coffee all day. And like, that's it. You survive on coffee and bananas for like a good chunk of your life. And you have to be willing to spend the best years of your life sleeping on top of drums and showering in the sink. And like, that is unfortunately the reality of being an independent artist for a lot of years. And we caught the attention of our agent fairly, like it took like a year between like meeting our agent and like signing with him, just because of like the politics of like of Canada, where the agency that like he had working with was like closing, because it was like, again, in Canada you deal with like satellite offices a lot, where like basically you have to recognize like the majority of your business, if you're in Canada, is going to be built out of the United States. And so a lot of the agency offices in Canada are satellite offices of American agencies. And so a lot of things were shifting at that point, so we got kind of caught in the like the hurricane of that. And then like once we finally came on the other side, like we signed with Ralph, we started touring a lot more. And just on a fluke, like, it's like the people you work with, if they're excited about you, they'll talk about it with other people. It's like, And so like Ralph had like flown down to LA for a conference, met up with Ollie, and like they had worked together on a few other bands at that point. And Ralph was just like, yeah, check out this band that like we really, we just signed, we're really excited about. And again, like that was right when Greta Van Fleet had just blown up with Highway Tune, and everyone in the world was like, oh shit, you can actually be a rock band again without
Mm.
clicking backing. You can just like actually make music with a guitar and people will actually pay attention. Cool. And I think that opened up a lot of like the industry to the idea of signing other artists. And we've actually seen that there's like a bunch of bands out of LA, like Joyous Wolf and what's that other song, that other band? There's a few other bands that like are out there right now that again like are more guitar based and more like organic uh
Mm.
rock music. And like we kind of like, I think we caught that wave when a lot
Mm.
of majors were starting to be more open towards bands rather than solo artists. And yeah, so it just kind of worked out where Ollie saw us at the right time. And it's funny, like my manager's become one of my best friends in the world because of like this pandemic. Is like we just jump on like FaceTime calls and hang out all the time and shoot the shit about records. And again, it's like
Nice.
you're only as good as the relationships you have, for sure, and at least in this industry. And like I'm so lucky that I get to work with like my best friends
Mm.
and like carve that out. And I think like that love translates through our music. And I think that's like, again, like people feel that, where, like the Eagles, for instance, you can just tell those guys are fucking assholes,
Yeah.
um, like I still like the Eagles, but damn, like, it's,
Hmm.
they were not nice people.
No,
But
exactly.
that's
But how,
like,
like, when you're in the trenches, like in those early years where it's just you have to
yeah,
shower in the sink. What motivates you to continue? Is it just that it might work out, or just you just take day by day? You don't really think about the future.
I think like, you have to be nuts. You have to like want it more than anything. Like you have to have a little bit of like, because you sacrifice everything, like for music. At least like I have, like I've sacrificed um like any chance of uh you know, well, it's like any small business though. You have to invest like 5-6 years of being in the red before you start seeing any return on your investment.
Mm.
And people go to school for 5-6 years and incur a ton of debt to get their degree, to go get the job of their dreams. Or people will go and open up their own small business and invest like the best years of their life. And so that's what I've seen my band as, and my music. And it's like it's my craft. It's like this compulsion to do it. And I feel like if I was doing anything else, I wouldn't feel
Mm.
fulfilled. And like obviously there are days where I don't feel fulfilled with music, and sometimes it's
Mm.
really frustrating because there's ups and downs in anything in life. But there's just like a certain drive I've had since I was 11 years old, and I started playing bass, and it was like everything else kind of melted away in my life, and it was
Mm.
like this is it. Like, and I think that's like a really common story with a lot of musicians. Whereas like you just have to want it, and you just like you have to be willing to make really big sacrifices, which is why a lot of the best musicians I know aren't professional musicians. They're doctors and lawyers and teachers, and they just happen to play music for themselves in their bedrooms when they have free time, and they're able to do it for the love of it.
Mm.
Whereas the most successful musicians I know aren't always the most talented. They're just the hardest working. And I think that's really important to recognize in music, where it's like, that's why, we see all these artists that play three chords and make really like simple music. It doesn't matter because they just went for it. And it's like, you have to be willing to eat shit for 5 years before you see any return on it. And like,
Mm.
that's, something important to recognize, where, it's not about talent. Talent gets you so far. The songs have to be good, the music has to be good, but it's like, how hard are you willing to work for it? How much are you willing to sacrifice? Yeah, how many showers in the sink are you willing to take?
Mm.
And that's why a lot of people don't like touring. That's why a lot of people end up burning out and like becoming studio only bands, or and whatnot. So I think
Mm.
like, again, like this year we would have been on the road like for 200 days out of the year if it weren't for COVID, and we probably would have ended up burning out, all things considered.
Mm.
So taking this year off, has probably actually been like really beneficial for our health,
Mm-hmm.
physical and mental. And I think it's like you have to like push yourself so hard to really make it in the live music world if you want to make it. And the genre of music that we choose to play lives on the stage. Like rock music doesn't stream as well as even like metal does, right? Like metal streams a lot better than rock music does. And so it's actually easier to find success online with more extreme genres of music rather than rock.
Mm-hmm.
um, so this was the path like I felt like I was destined to take since I was like 11. It's just been my mission, and it's like you have to be relentless and like just want it more than
Mm-hmm.
anything else.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I cannot do anything more than agree, and that's what you see across the board is people like yourself. You just do it until, I mean, you just have to do it. It's not like, and it's not like, oh, I'll only do it for a year, and if it doesn't work, I stop. It's like you just do it because you love to do it, and you're willing to work
Yeah,
hard.
and yeah, when you're like self-aware of that, of like your conscious and unconscious thoughts that like start showing up. It's like I'm always thinking about music. Like
Mm,
it's not like something I can just turn off. And
mm,
for some people that's cooking. For some people that's accounting. Like whatever your passion in your life is, you have to like follow that. And I'm very lucky that I found it at such an early age, and I knew that this is what I have to do. Where some people you find that when you're 40, some people find that when you're 50. It does. It's like. Um, there's no hard and fast rules, but I know for myself like
mhm,
this is what I'm doing, so
mm.
um
That's awesome, man.
yeah. And for some people it's producing, and some people it is I know some people that are the best like front of house engineers in the world because that's their craft. And I think
Mm.
like once you find that and you start honing it down and you're like, yeah, you dedicate your life to that, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Well said, man. Kevin, it's been a big pleasure talking to you for this hour and a bit more.
Yeah, man.
Um, so, did you say that you have some new songs coming out? Is that next
Yeah.
week?
Yeah, so March 11th is when these songs are dropping. So I'm
Ah,
guessing this
cool.
will be out by
Yeah, I'll
like,
release this next week actually.
oh,
Uh,
beautiful. So
next Wednesday. Yeah, so I'll be out by then. Yeah, so people should check it out if they're
definitely,
watching this next week. Yeah.
yeah, we're really proud of those. We tracked those. This one song, man, we worked on it with Terry Brown, and then we ended up touring this song for like a year, and it just the arrangement had changed a bit, and so we ended up going and re-recording it with Nick Raskulinecz down in Nashville,
Mm.
and it's kind of like a tribute to Rush. And the day before we were supposed to go and record it, Neil Peart passed away last year,
Oh yeah,
and
true.
it
Yeah.
really tough, man, because we just figured like, okay, well the session's over, obviously. And then Nick called us. He's like, no, man, like now's the time to do it. You have to like carry that torch. And I
Yeah.
feel like we were able to actually record it on like one of Neil Peart's drum kits that he had given to Nick, and it felt like the catharsis of it all, of like being able to pay tribute to our hero, and like hopefully make him proud wherever he is. And
Mm.
yeah, we're really, really happy with those songs. I think it's like the best thing we've ever done, and it's like a new chapter where we're trying to push ourselves in like this much more progressive direction. And
Awesome,
yeah,
man. Yeah, I really look
resonates.
forward to hearing them.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm really
Definitely.
excited to hear what you think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, man. But yeah, Kevin, thanks again for coming on. Real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you
Um,
for having me, man.
Thank you, Kevin, for coming on. Real pleasure having you here. And I hope you, the listener, enjoyed it as well. Again, cast your vote for a new podcast name. There's a link in the description below. Please support the channel by subscribing, hit the like button, and also, of course, check out the band Crownlands. Listen to the music; it's really, really cool. Hopefully, you can see them live when this whole shit is over. Life is back to normal, whenever that will be. I hope it's gonna be this year. Damn, it's annoying. Miss normal life. I think you do too, to be honest. And this sucks, but this is a situation. Just gotta deal with it for the moment being. Um, but yeah, show your support to Crownlands. Please support the channel too by liking, subscribing, all that. And I will see you guys next week again. So take care and see you soon.